Hello, everyone. I am Adam, the CDO at Demiplane, and thank you for joining me for this week's development update and community Q&A session. Sorry for some of the delay there. We're trying to get things sorted on the technical side. I don't know why, but this software stuff that all of our lives depend on really is finicky from time to time, and so it's something, but it's literally most of our team's life now. So on top of all of it, but we are now joining you and looking at today's lineup. We've got a special one. Today is the day that you're going to start seeing so many different things about the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game that is going to be released tomorrow. And so I am joined today by a special guest. After we talk with our special guest, we're going to go into latest updates, what's upcoming on the roadmap for Pathfinder Nexus and other things that Demiplane is working on. And as always, you can ask me questions throughout the stream. All you have to do is type the word question in front of said question in Twitch chat, and we've got a magical robot that will collect them all, and I will chew through as many as I can in the time that we have here together today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our special guest, Mr. Matt Forbeck. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt. Really appreciate it.
This thing's on? Good. I'm glad to hear it.
It is on. I can hear you. I think everybody on the internet out there can hear you too. Woo-hoo! So yes, we have succeeded. We have done probably the hardest part of our day. We could just call it a day and move on, but instead we're going to talk a little bit about everything that's going on with the Marvel Multiverse RPG. And first of all, for anyone who might not know out there, tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Oh, I'm an old man who's been working in games forever. That's all you really need to know. But let's see. My name is Matt Forbeck. I'm a novelist and game designer. I started out doing games. I grew up in southern Wisconsin. I started out as a game designer back in the 80s, and I've been doing it ever since I got out of college in 1989. Worked on lots of different games. Most recently, I'm doing Shotguns and Sorcery for 5th edition and the Cypher system. But today, or actually tomorrow, we're doing the Marvel role-playing game, which I'm really excited about. This is my second time working on a Marvel role-playing game, and I've worked on a couple of different Marvel MMOs and the Marvel Battle Dice game for Playmates Toys, and wrote a couple editions of the Marvel Encyclopedia. So I might be a little into it,
I've got it, on the shelf. The encyclopedia is on the shelf behind me somewhere in the midst of the vast collection. But yeah, absolutely have followed your work for a long time. Just before we got on the stream here, I kind of dropped Deadlands out there, and definitely involved with that one. So big fan, Matt. And talking about Marvel, this new role-playing game that's coming tomorrow. Let's talk just a little bit. Let's bubble that up a little bit and talk about what Marvel means to you.
Marvel has always been a part of my life since I can ever remember. Right. One of the first things my parents taught me how to read on was Spidey comics, right, which were from the Electric Company. They did a co-publishing deal. The Electric Company was a show that came on after Sesame Street for people who aren't quite of the Gen X era. But they had this guy who comes out in this really, funny looking Spider-Man suit. It's all pre-computer generated imagery and walks around really funny. And the most amazing part looking back was that he was introduced all the time by Easy Reader on Electric Company. And it turns out that's Morgan Freeman, which, decades later is like the voice of God and everything. So, but yeah, I've read comic books. I can't tell you how many long boxes of stuff. And I had Ken Hite ask me, or somebody asked me once, how do you do research for this stuff? And, how long does it take you? And Ken Hite looks over my shoulder and says, just his whole life. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much how it works.
It is the best teacher is experience. And yeah, for Marvel, I was so thrilled to share the news last week that Demiplane would be providing some official digital tool support for this game. Marvel, of course, means a ton to me. For me, it was starting out on G.I. Joe. So G.I. Joe comics, huge G.I. Joe fan when I was a kid, collected all of the action figures. And I remember reading those G.I. Joe comics, and Marvel was just so good, like, physical media was so great back in those days for the cross promotion. And so I kept coming across those splash ads that were talking about this Wolverine character. And, and so all of that got me. And then for me, the moment that all of that clicked over, I was a few, months into a G.I. Joe, starting to collect that. And then X-Men, the animated series landed. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was all over with at that point in time. I went that day. I remember my mother took me to I think it was a Walmart, and I saw, I guess because the show, the animated series was coming out, they had packaged X-Men #1, the Jim Lee wraparound
Yep.
cover, one of the most iconic covers of all time, in one of those, hard plastic things that you had to get the scissors to get it out, but I remember that, and it was over with for me at that point in time, and just eat, sleep, and breathe so much Marvel since that point. So since we both have been fans for a little while here, this is the really hard question. Do you have a favorite Marvel character?
Well, like I said, Spider-Man was my first character, right? Now I've been the biggest Spider-Man fan forever. Part of that's because, I grew up as this little asthmatic kid with glasses and such. And that's how Peter Parker starts out, right? He's like, oh, but I've been bit by this. And now I can throw away my glasses and get rid of the medication. I'm like, oh, this is
Well,
awesome.
I see you're not wearing glasses now. Did you get bitten by that radioactive?
No,
Oh, there
well,
you go.
there we go. These are actually readers. I actually had cataract surgery due to
Oh, there you go.
autoimmune disease and all
A
this
little bit
crazy stuff.
harder than the spider bite, but
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So nowadays I see pretty well, except up this close gets a little bit tricky. Um, but I'll tell you, the other character I really fell in love with though is I wrote a Captain America book a couple years ago for DK Publishing, and I guess it was 5 years ago now. Holy cow! But you just fell in love with Cap all over again because you think, oh, he's just this cheesy flag waving guy, and then you get to go through and read everything from all these different writers and how much they've done such a great job over the years. Going all the way back to Joe Simon and Jack Kirby back in the 40s, even 39 or whatever when it first came out. And 1940. I actually wrote all this stuff. But it's just fantastic. You just read them, you're like, this is a character you can really get behind. It's really about the ideals that America's about. And it actually makes you feel patriotic as you're doing it. As screwy as things can be over the years in real politics, Cap is always a touchstone you can come back to and really feel the spirit of the country. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got the question last week about who my favorite character was after we made our announcement, and my answer was essentially, season based, like season in my life, like
Yeah.
what I was going through. And so in those early days, especially with the X-Men, lots and lots there. High school, college, became a huge Daredevil fan. Not exactly sure why. Probably Frank Miller's stuff but really, really loved Daredevil. But then, I remember thinking when I was a teenager how much of a prude Captain America was.
Exactly.
But it's, as I've gotten older, that, and maybe, circumstances in my life have changed a bit. He probably is, at least today, if you ask me, my favorite character as well. And so that's really interesting to hear. So, let's jump into things about the game.
Sure.
So it is very important that as this releases tomorrow, this is the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game playtest rulebook.
Right.
And this is a playtest with, an intended core rulebook coming out, later.
Yeah.
And so when we think about a playtest, what are your goals for the playtest?
It means I can't be held responsible for anything. Just remember that. It's
It's like a software developer just slapping beta on everything.
yeah, exactly.
That's
We'll
it.
figure it out in post. It's no, it basically means that when you're doing game design, I tell you, as many times as I've done this over the decades, no plan that you come up with ever actually succeeds, right? The first time you sit down, I usually sit down and start playing a game by myself. I'll walk around the table and play all the different positions. And then I'll bring in family and then I'll bring in friends and I'll play at conventions with people I don't know. And then we'll put it out in the world. But it's at every stage you find new issues with the game, right? And not just issues, but ways you could improve it. Because it's really not about whether or not it's a bad game. By the time it gets to this stage, it's not a bad game. The question is, how great can we make it? And that's really what we're looking for from people, some feedback saying, I really like this part. This part didn't work for me. this part sucked. You can say whatever you want to when you get to the feedback forms, right? One of the things I encourage people doing with feedback, though, is not just to tell people what they didn't like or what didn't work, but what the parts they loved, right? Because then we know what not to throw out, right? You don't want to throw out the baby with the
And
bathwater.
what to double down on. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
What is most exciting about this? What gets you guys really going about it? And that's going to be the kind of feedback we're really going to be looking for.
What for the playtest? What concept or game mechanic are you most excited for players to try out?
Yeah, I think the character creation is going to be the most incredible part, right? I mean, the combat I think we got down pretty well, and mostly it's going to be a matter of somebody saying, "I didn't get it." I'm going to have to say, "Well, I need to explain that part better." But the combat looks like it works pretty well. The character creation rules, because there are so many different ways to do it, it's almost impossible for, even if I got my 100 best friends in a room to play the game, that I would actually come up with every permutation that we possibly can and try to break it. But if we put it out there in the market where people can play and get excited about it, you're going to break it in ways that none of us could have thought of, right? And I want to see where those cracks form and where the fissures break open, and we get volcanoes spewing out and all that. Let us know where the disasters are that whatever group I'm with or we're working with can't figure out. That's why we want to put this out in the market and have people be able to help us out that way. Because otherwise, there's not a large enough group of people to play with.
I, will try to avoid the questions about why is Thor rank X versus, Hulk rank X plus. No, but yeah, we'll avoid those. But how do you think that, one of the things that we're really excited about is as games have released into their playtest period in the past, there really hasn't been a ton of digital support, kind of from the get go there. And so, as thinking about being able to have digital support from the start, how do you think digital tools can help people play test the game?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I mean, for one, it means that you have lots of different ways to cross reference the rules. You have lots of different ways to look at it, to build your characters and everything else, and to play with the game, right? I mean, obviously, even though the pandemic's starting to trail off now, we're still in the middle of that. So people can then get together with people that they trust, wherever they happen to be in the world, and play this game with them and explain it to each other. And I think that's going to be, again, a way that we get many more people involved in this that we wouldn't otherwise been able to. Plus, I mean, one of the things about play testing a game around a table is that most people are going to be looking at the rules saying, God, I can't remember this. I don't want to flip through this. But when you have it right there on your phone or your tablet or your computer, you just say, oh, yeah, no, you're doing it wrong. They explained it this way right here. And I'll send you the text so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. That's going to be really cool. And I think hopefully improve what we're doing here. I mean, I'm just excited to be able to play with that stuff myself. So I'm pretty thrilled that you guys are on board with this.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see how everything evolves over the playtest period, and like you said earlier, what works and what needs some dials and knobs fiddled with a little bit. But this is an exciting part of the process for me. I've seen one of the things that has really proven itself out over the last several years is that the best games are games that really were play tested. And you see this in the video gaming world all the time. It's almost like you can see it's like, oh, that was not really tested appropriately, but having this opportunity to play test a game that is a sandbox in a world that means so much to me is really just a dream come true. And we're really looking forward to it. Is there anything else before I let you go? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that people know about the game or the playtest?
Well, I want you guys to know that we all love this just as much as you do, and we're really here to help you have fun, right? And if we're succeeding at that, then we're doing the best possible thing. Help us help you have fun.
Help us help you have fun. I love it. Thanks so much, Matt. I really appreciate you joining me today. I'm going to let you go now, and we're going to jump into the rest of it. But thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on,
Yeah.
Adam.
See
Great
you.
to see you again.
Yeah. You too. Bye. All right. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Matt. I was just saying before the show there, I was like, yeah, if I lived closer to Matt, like we would be going and sitting at the pub and eating some cheese curds all the time. I feel like so I think the game is in great hands with Matt and the team that is putting this together, and really looking forward to how that develops over the course of this playtest. And you can pick up the Marvel Multiverse role playing game playtest rulebook in digital format on Demiplane, on the Nexus that we have for that. So you can go to www.demiplane.com/Marvel RPG, and that's going to get you where you need to go. And that is going to be going live like in the wee hours of the morning. So by the time you have one more sleep, you will be able to dig into the playtest rulebook, and really looking forward to that getting out into the world. All right. So speaking of that, on those latest updates, grab that, and we have that coming out tomorrow. And then on the Pathfinder Nexus front, we are currently, the second phase of early access, of course, is kind of in progress and nearing the end stages of that second phase. And right now we have the rest of the standalone adventures are kind of queued up, and they are going to be hitting very soon here. And I won't promise by the next time that we talk here on a dev update, but I am telling you that I think that at least for most of those, that is the target. So we are going to hopefully be very soon here caught up on all of the standalone adventures. And then we have really great news that is that next week? Yes. So next week, on April the 27th, that is the digital street date for Book of the Dead. And this book is just flat out incredible. I adore everything that I'm seeing in Book of the Dead for Pathfinder. You can see some of the artwork on the screen right now. So, a couple of teases for the artwork. It is just top-notch production quality. And if you dream up what you think would be in this book, the chances are that it has it. And this is going to be just an invaluable tool for your Pathfinder games. Check that out next week, and it will be available there on that day and date release date, because we are now caught up on the rulebook side, and we're really excited about that. So check out Book of the Dead for next week. And then we are working on the character engine. So to get a little more specific with this, and I think that we're probably a week or two out from showing some early conceptual designs for everything here, because we would like to start peeling back the curtain a little bit and getting some of your feedback. But right now we are working through actual class features. So we're getting all the data sorted, and how the data is going to be stored for a barbarian's rage and all of the other class features for all of the classes out there. And we are working on prerequisites, because of course that is a very important piece of whether someone can get a feat. And we're not necessarily just talking about only prerequisites in the sense that you have to have a certain strength score to use a piece of equipment and so on. We are talking about that. I don't know why we're saying we. I'm not Venom or anything, or am I? But ultimately, with those prerequisites, it is going to be things like I have the dwarf trait, and so therefore I can choose dwarf feats for my ancestry feat, and so on. So all of that, we are working on the engines for that are going to go into this overall character engine. A little bit more on that before too much longer. Upcoming. So on the early access roadmap that you're seeing here, the biggest change is that digital sheet has gone gold. Not in the sense of actually going gold in like the gaming world, video game world. It's not actually ready for release, but I mean that I have changed the font color on this particular screen to show that we are actively working on that digital sheet now. So again, minor change on this screen, but something that's very exciting for the team. And then I know that we got some questions about this last week. The way that our team is structured is we have developers that are working on the platform. We have a game content team that is working on digitizing all the content, and we are absolutely doing many of these things in parallel. And so there will be more news on the World of Darkness front soon. And so I mainly putting that on here to let everyone know that work is starting up on all of those fronts, and that nothing is being forgotten about here. And we're excited to share more news very, very soon on that. All right, let's jump into questions. We're kind of already out of time, but I do want to make sure that I can hit at least a few of these. So I'm going to jump in here. All right, that doesn't look like a question. Today only, because I actually I have to get to a funeral pretty quick here. So I might not answer questions about triceratopses today. But one time situation today, so I apologize. We'll jump into some of these others. All right, Pathfinder Nexus, will the box set get some love, or at least the module Menace under Otari as a gateway for those new to Pathfinder? That is an excellent question, and we were literally talking about this with the team yesterday. And so the answer is yes. We are trying to figure out how to package Menace under Otari as something that you can access on Pathfinder Nexus. So we haven't figured out all those details yet, but we'll work with Paizo. And the intent is, yes, we would want to have that content on there, because it also serves as a great, precursor to Troubles in Otari. So it's something that we want to do, absolutely. So Anchor 89, how many heroes and villain stat blocks are included in the playtest? So I don't know if that information is coming out today or not. So I'm going to hold off on answering it. But you will absolutely be able to see tomorrow if you have unlocked the playtest rulebook. Let's see. JRN Mariano, will the Marvel Multiverse RPG playtest have regular content updates until the final book release? I can't quite answer that, but I definitely, as a fan, I would love to see that myself. So we'll obviously see how that goes and take cues from Marvel there. Let's see. Got several questions that are about the playtest that I'm going to have to hold off on because I'm just going to either have to say no comment or I will defer to Marvel. But those answers, I think, are going to be coming very soon. So keep your eyes peeled in all the places that game is going to be talked about there. Let's see. So Anchor 89, are the plans to be able to print a hard copy of our characters that we print? So trying to get at that question, I'm going to say across Demiplane, as character builders and digital character sheets come out, we absolutely understand that it's important for fans to be able to also print character sheets. So we will provide some way for that to be able to be possible. Caffeine, will the multi-book adventure pass be added to Demiplane as well, such as Age of Ashes? The intent is that we're going to have all of it. And so we are going to cover all of that ground. Not exactly sure when it's all going to happen, but we are committed to having all of that content available. Let's see. Anchor 89, will the AP's adventure paths release when all the books and then adventure path are done, or as they are completed? This is a great question. So our current plan is we probably will only release an adventure path after all of the books are completed, as we are playing catch up. So if these are books that have already been out for some time, that's what we would do. Now, going forward, as we catch up to new and newly released adventure paths, we would plan on releasing those books as they are released, just like adventure paths currently hit their street dates. Let's see, any others? All right, this is the last one here that is not something that I would have to say no comment on, at least for today. Check back in tomorrow. Anchor 89, will there be more than one skin with the digital sheet? Cleric, Fighter Champion, folios. That is an excellent question, and we have several things planned for character sheet customization. We're not going to get to all of those plans right out of the gate, but I very intimately am aware of how much we as fans and players of these games connect with our characters. I tell the story all the time of how I used to, stare at the World of Warcraft armory at my make believe character for way too many hours of the day. I don't even know what I was doing when I'm thinking back to it. But I think that at the heart of that was just a compelling, strong desire to connect with my character, because that was something that mattered to me. And so I think that one of the reasons that I love tabletop role playing games as much as I do is we get to create any kind of character that we want, and we can really infuse them with things that we care about, with things that we want to explore, with things that we connect to, and we want to connect with them on a regular basis. And so once we have characters on our Nexus platform for Demiplane, that same kind of connection is going to exist. And so we're going to provide ways for you to connect with them more and more outside of even the game table when you play them. And so customizations, skins, all of those kinds of things are things that that are going to help us connect with those characters, and let us make those characters our own. And so, yes, we are going to have those things. We'll share more as we get a little further down the road as to what those things are going to be and what the first pass of those things are going to be. But we're really excited about it and looking forward to it. All right, I am over time a little bit. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Apologies for the late start, but thanks so much to Matt Forbeck for joining me. And I can't wait for people to get their hands on the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game tomorrow. So you can get that on the Nexus. You can pre-order now, but you can actually open it and start looking at those beautiful hero profiles for all those characters, and plunging into the digital reader with that content, searching the powers listing. All of that's going to be available tomorrow morning. Check back in with that. We'll catch you next week. Later, Gators.